as entrepreneurs, we want to get our message out. We want to really build a great company so we can make that dent in the universe. I'll tell you, my next guest is someone who has done it, and he's done it more than once. And this is something that's so important for all of us. He built the biggest company, okay, the biggest company in the shortest amount of time. And he's going to share his insights and secrets here on AESNation.com. I'm John Bowen, CEO of AES Nation, and stay tuned.
Ordinary success? No way. You want amazing, remarkable, exceptional breakthroughs. Dig deep, think bold, drive hard, watch yourself soar beyond your dreams. AESNation.com.
Fred Catona, thank you for joining us. I am so excited to have you here today. One of my key copywriters was at the Direct Response Titans. I forgot what the exact title was. And I asked him who was the number one presenter who had the best ideas. And he goes, Fred. And since I didn't know you, Fred, beforehand, but I started doing a little research, and you have created and done some amazing things. So thank you for taking time today to join us.
Thanks, John. You know, that writer, I slipped him $20 in order to say that. So,
well, it's always important to get the end result. So no, that's great. Fred, I mean, you've done so much on the advertising marketing side. You've made a lot of history. We're going to get into that. But what I'd like to do, on AES Nation, what we are always doing is getting kind of the backstory. And, how did you get started in all this?
Okay, I'm going to be as modest as I possibly can with some shameless self-promotion. If I don't do this, John, nobody will listen to me, so I have to. I have no recourse here but to brag, and I apologize.
And it's not bragging if you've done it, and that's why I want you to. It's so important because this is a virtual mastermind of very successful entrepreneurs, and what we're looking for is how can we be more successful, serving our clients, attracting new clients, and really making a difference. And you've done it, Fred. So I really want to hear that.
Okay, so what I'm going to do during this conversation, John, is I'm going to tell you what I've done, how the people that are listening to this and watching this can do it also, and I'll also give a tip how I can help. So they're the three things that I want to accomplish here. But let me start off by saying what I've accomplished. First of all, what I did, I launched a company that had the greatest response ever in history. It built the most revenue ever created in history. It built the greatest valuation ever in history, and it built the fastest brand ever in history, and it created the richest CEO in history, and that was Priceline.com. And here's what happened. In 14 days of my commercials running, 2.2 million people requested airline tickets. This was Priceline.com. We sold $15 million in airline tickets in the first week. We built the second biggest e-commerce brand in the world in just 120 days. We went public in 18 months with a valuation of $10 billion, and in 24 months, our valuation was $21 billion. Today, Priceline's valuation is somewhere around $75 billion, and the stock is selling for $1,240 a share.
Well, I got to stop here because this is I know you've done a lot, and just this one example is just so amazing because I remember when I first saw it come out, and I go, geez, I wonder if it's going to make it. So I'm not always going to be right here on these things. And I remember there were a lot of doubters on it. It was a very disruptive model, leveraging technology. Your marketing was very different than what was traditional in that industry, the airline travel industry. And how did I mean, it's just an amazing numbers. Help us better understand, because when I look at campaigns like that, Fred, I'm amazed, and it's like after the fact that I could have done that easy, type thing, but. Before the fact, how did you put the strategy in? I mean, and that was a big commitment from an advertising basis, the talent you brought in, the whole thing. Give us a little kind of the background before launching this too.
Well, I'll tell you how we did. It was pretty simple, actually. And the things that are the biggest usually are pretty simple. So I selected Shatner as the spokesperson, and somebody wrote in one of the journals, "What a brilliant selection." The truth of the matter is, and I never used to tell this story because Bill Shatner started telling it recently, so now I tell it. But when we hired him, he was living in a trailer in his backyard. All right, so he was way in between jobs, and we didn't have much money. Perfect match. Perfect. We had no money. He had no job. Perfect match. So that's that piece of it. So we gave him $50,000 and 90,000 shares of Priceline.com. At a point, remember, when people didn't know what .com meant. So
yeah, the 90,000 shares at that point weren't a huge value.
No, not at all. Not at all. So what happened after that is we had a very limited budget. And Jay Walker, the founder of Priceline, he's just a guy like you, John, and like myself, pretty smart guy, willing to take chances. He's an incredible entrepreneur. He and I were speaking up to 2 days ago. We were exchanging ideas. But here's what happened. He said, "What do you think of this idea?" It's just like you would say to me right now, "Hey, Fred, I got this idea. What do you think of it?" And to be direct with you, John, I said, "It sounds okay to me." The reason I said it sounded okay to me, one of the reasons is he had a check in front of him, and I was a school teacher, and I could read upside down. And I said, there's the check. I better say his idea is pretty good. So anyway, he gave us a check, and he told me, he said, "Fred, this is all the money I have. I could borrow, beg, and steal."
So Fred, I wanted to stop. Is this is the launch also of your agency too at this point? Because you. Or,
no, I'll go back to that.
Yeah, because I want to get back to that, but we'll stay. Okay, he's got the check. I've been in those meetings where the checks are passed over, and he said, "Yeah, we might be able to run with this here."
Yeah. So the rest. So I went back and I made the buy, and used my secret sauce. I call it now the secret sauce, and it worked like the results I just gave you, and. And everybody said I was lucky, and I go, "Really? Of course I was lucky. I had a great offer." But 6 months later, I launched using the same marketing scheme. I launched freecreditreport.com. So made that $1 billion brand. So what I'm going to relate today is how it's done and how anybody could do it.
No, and I think we've got a whole bunch of entrepreneurs. If they're watching the video, they're leaning in. If they're jogging, they probably turn the treadmill down just a little bit as they're listening to us, because I'm interested in the secret sauce. I want to share it with our audience, but this is a challenge that we all have as entrepreneurs. Is boy, there's so much marketing noise out there. How do we get our message out? How can we be disruptive for that industry and really have explosive growth? I mean, those are two of the most explosive growth ever on marketing launches. So, Fred, how as we're listening to this, we're going, okay, got it. He's done it. It's not bragging. Okay, next thing, what can he share with me of the secret sauce that I can go out and execute?
Okay, so it's not that difficult, John. I always say I use something called radio. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's a little box. Sometimes they sit on a shelf, and they're in most cars today. So I use radio, but I use it I integrate it with social media and internet marketing, which I'll get into in a second. But let me start off by saying this, and this is what I always say in my presentations. You're 185 words. That's the amount of words in a 60-second radio commercial. You're 185 words from immense wealth. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. I don't know the 185 words, but I could find out, by testing it. And since radio is inexpensive to produce and test, that's how I find the right message. To do that, there's three things you have to do. First of all, and this is a writer-downer, this is a good one. You have to think about this, and it won't occur to you immediately, but I always ask my new clients three things. I always say to them, who is your enemy? And they immediately think it's their competitor, and that's one of their enemies. But let me give you an example of what an enemy is. It's either, if you were Nike, John, and you came up with the slogan, just do it, what do you think, who do you think the enemy is? You have to think about it. You probably won't know the answer immediately, but the enemy is laziness.
Being complacent, not getting
Yes,
up and
exactly.
exercising. It's not Adidas or New Balance and all this. It's just, if you don't exercise, you're not going to, or do sports activity, you're not going to buy Nike.
Exactly correct. So they identified the enemy, and they went right at the enemy. Now, for Apple, they identified the enemy as basically the establishment. That if you have an Apple, you're cool, and that's what I want to do. I want to be cool, so I want to own an Apple product.
Well,
so
and
they
I don't want
identified.
and I don't want to be one of those lemons jumping off the hill. The 1984 commercial that they did here.
Yeah,
I want to be definitely cool.
Yeah, definitely cool. So think differently. Be different. Priceline was simple. People want to fly. They want the cheapest price. So Priceline comes up with this one: name your own price. We didn't say you're going to get it. We didn't say it was the lowest. We simply empowered you by saying, "Hey, name your own price."
I hadn't thought of it that way. That is, I can see the brilliance of it now. That yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, we all want to in negotiating. Yeah, we want to name our own price, and we're all frustrated. To a seat on a plane on this aluminum tube. I mean, it's a commodity in most people's mind, and I just want the best price. Okay, well, I get to name it. Whoa.
Right, exactly correct. So now I'm going to drill down just a little bit to help people out there formulate their own marketing strategy, because that's your main question here. What is the strategy in order to create this marketing plan? So if you look at every great movie, every great book, every great play, you have a protagonist and an antagonist. And it's the distance between those that creates the drama. People love drama. So if you can market against something, against your enemy, the outside, people love to see that. Number one, they like a good fight. And number two, it sharpens your ability to market. Now you know who you're after. Prior to that, you're after everybody. You can't beat everybody. But if you can focus down on what your enemy is, who it is it your competitor? If it is, it's Ford going after Honda, then you actually say it. You tell them why your Ford is better than Honda. And that's called predatory marketing. It's been in existence almost 20 years now, and it really does work because, again, you're creating a drama between the protagonist and the antagonist. So that's the way you have to think about your marketing.
No, I hadn't heard it framed that way. I think of Avis. We're number 2. We try harder. I mean, we're right directly against Hertz, and yeah, it's such a fundamental. What are we looking to overcome? And it's our enemy. And the Nike example is really powerful. Okay, you said there were 3 things. I want all 3 of them. Not just one.
Okay, so who's your enemy? How to defeat them? And what are your 10 words? So the 10 words, all these 3 things are very difficult questions. They take a lot of, John, you have to take a lot of showers to think of these answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you really have to focus on this. Those 10 words are the 10 words that are going to stick in the mind, in the front of the minds of the people you're marketing to. Whether it's name your own price, or whether think differently, or whether why Honda's better than a Ford, or Ford is better than a Honda, or it's save 15% in 15 minutes. All right, so here's what happens. So you have these 3 things, okay? And you have your 10 words, let's say. And your strategy is set. Now you do something that's incredible. You're going to bend reality. How do you bend reality? You bend reality with frequency. If you tell your girlfriend or boyfriend that you're the best at something often enough, they might end up believing you. So you have to constantly remind people who you are and why you're the greatest. Muhammad Ali said, I figured if I said I was the greatest often enough, people would start believing it too. So you have to start creating frequency of your message. So when we do a marketing plan, for instance, and we have to run commercials, we run our commercials close together. We don't run them far apart. It's called tight rotation. Why do we do that? Because we know people will listen to a program for a period of time. During that period of time, we want them to hear our commercial over and over again. We're trying to drive home a reality that's based on perception. See, here's what happens. Frequency creates a perception. Perception actually is truth. And truth is what people start believing, and they start believing in your brand. So the perception that you create with frequency actually bends reality. Perception actually becomes reality. And that, if you can get that, John, I could leave right now, right off this podcast, and I've given enough.
No, you have. I mean, I think of the being ubiquitous, the power of being, I mean, walking through your three, knowing who your enemy is, and this is one we always think of the competitors. And I love the Nike example, and I think for everyone that's watching or listening to this podcast, you have an enemy. I mean, I'm in financial services. I have the privilege of coaching top financial advisors. I match successful investors with top financial advisors. And the enemy really is not the competitors, it's inertia. So often we just don't do anything about our financials. We ignore it and we make costly mistakes. How do you defeat that? How are you going to overcome that? And then the 10 words, maybe just a little dive, Fred. One of the challenges we all have on the 10-word part is, after the fact, like Nike's, just do it. We could go through all these different slogans. They're blindingly obvious how powerful they are, but they're not. And what's the creative process you and your team use to help somebody through this?
Well, as I said, what appears simple really isn't that simple. Oftentimes, when we do a test on radio, the consumer will actually tell you. But here, an example, we did it like a month ago. It was Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, and the commercial was something like, "Hi, this is Kevin Harrington from ABC's hit show Shark Tank, and I want to show you how to grow your customer base. And I want to, I've grown a lot of businesses in my time, and I want to show you how you can do it too, and I'm willing to invest up to $150,000 to help you do that." So the commercial took off, went through the roof. I said, yeah, I put in the $150,000 part. That was I was on the creative team in that, and I knew that would work. I knew it because it was just too good. At any rate, here's the feedback that came back. It was a hit, but here's how it even got more improved. People started calling in because we started that commercial by saying, "Attention business owners." People started calling in, John, that didn't own businesses. They wanted to learn how to start a business. So they said, "Could you tweak that commercial?" I said, "That's easy, And then it was attention business owners and those looking to go into business. This is Kevin Harrington from, So little things like that can change dramatically what happened. Okay, so with free credit report, it was run a free credit report on yourself. And for Priceline, it was name your own price for an airline ticket. Notice there was a nuance of empowerment in each one of those messages. So your 10 words, the message that you're going to come up with should have empowerment in it. Turn the power over to your customer and let them tell you, instead of hitting them over the head, buy now, let them enter into the process. And by the way, John, what I just said right there, that's a multi-million-dollar tip right there.
Well, no, I wrote it down, Fred. Matter of fact, I'm going to go a little different direction, and I want to ask you, one of the biggest challenges, I want to go two things. One, a lot of people think radio is dead, so I want to, it's a dying type, and, I know you don't think that, and I want to get why, because I agree with you, but I think this is an important thing. And second, I want to touch on, One of the biggest challenges for many entrepreneurs is, they want to get their message out. They need some creative help. There's no shortage of agencies out there. There's no shortage of freelance people that are willing to help. I want to go into the selection process, your advice for our fellow entrepreneurs. But let's go to radio. When you're picking a medium to play in, why radio? Because I know you're a big user of that, and you've used it extremely effectively.
Correct. Well, first of all, I'm a direct response marketer, so I'm fluent in radio, TV, print, internet, mobile, direct mail. I can do all those things. I'm very astute in all those. The reason I do radio is because I have a studio 50 feet from where I'm sitting right now. I have writers another 50 feet away. So what I can do is I can take a message. I can write the message. I can produce the message, and I have media buyers another 50 feet away, and I can place that all just like that. And I could find out if this message is good or not good. Will it pull or not pull? You can't do that in TV, print. It's too expensive, and it's too time consuming. I need to do it fast. Okay, so as far as radio, they have 1 million more listeners this year than they had last year. So they have 243 million listeners in a week. Average person spends 19 hours a week listening to radio. That's why radio is, I'm kind of glad that people think that it's waning or something like that, because it really opens it up to my entrepreneurs. It really opens it up to my clients, because I can get on there, I can pay very little amount of money and create a tremendous amount of impact. As a matter of fact, our business plan for Priceline was this: get Wall Street excited. That was the first. We had 4 things: get Wall Street excited, get the press excited, get the owners of and the headquarters of airline companies excited, and oh, by the way, the 4th thing was sell airline tickets. Well, this was simple. My strategy was this: to excite Wall Street, I bought a ton of radio commercials with Shatner in and around Wall Street. It was physically impossible for you to turn on your radio without hearing one of our commercials. And this didn't cost me that much money. In all the headquarters where all the airlines were, which we needed them to give us seats, I blasted those areas. They thought, where the heck do these guys come from? We never even heard of these guys, and now they're all over the place. And and I use strategically my marketing and my geographic targeting and my demographic targeting in order to do this. So radio, I'm still high on it.
I am too. Fred, I love the part of radio. It's an immediate test. I mean, you can know in the next week you got great, great information. As entrepreneurs, if we're testing some of the messaging like that, what kind of budget should entrepreneurs think? If I guess we should talk probably local and then a national type.
Okay, so I'll tell you what our smallest client spends and what our largest client spends. Our smallest, and it depends on you're right, John, it depends on your market size. Mm-hmm. If you're in Wet Moxon, Idaho, you probably can't spend $2,000 a week on radio.
Well, I'm in Silicon Valley, San Francisco market. I do know that's a little expensive,
Expensive?
But, well,
John, send me your Black American Express card and we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
We're in Philadelphia, so we're the 5th or 6th largest market, so I'll use that as an example. If I'm doing a local buy here, I'm recommending anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a week, and I can get enough frequency in order to probably make it pay out. Not only create, find my message, but I might be able to make it pay out for that. For national, which is if you're a national player, we do it for about, on the small side, probably $15,000 a week. On the larger side, $50,000 to $60,000 a week. So here's the number that you should have in your head. So how do I know, Fred, if what I did was successful? Here's how you know. If you spend $1, you should get $3 back. So there's your financial plan right there. Write it down on paper. Say if I spend $5,000, and I get $15,000 back, am I okay? Did I cover my expenses? Am I going to make money on this? So that's kind of the metric that our people use, or I want them to
Yeah,
use.
no, and I love it. It's almost like owning the slot machine that you put $1 in and you get $3 back. I mean, once
Yes.
you get the messaging right and spend the time testing, you know, let's go to the next, that other question I had for you, Fred, is the agency selection. I mean, there are so many agencies, there's so many people out there, some with extreme talent and some who, at least enough talent to print the business card type thing and put a website up. But how does an entrepreneur really select someone that understands direct response? I mean, because many of them are just doing, image. And I'm a big believer like you that for every dollar I spend, I want to be able to track that return. And yeah, the branding comes about as an after fact. That's not the number one thing. I'm looking for actually results.
Correct. Well, I think you've articulated it properly. First of all, use a direct response agency. Don't use a branding agency. You can use a branding agency after you go public and you're worth, $75 billion. In the beginning, you need money. You need to spend $1 and get back $3. So use a direct response agency. If you're interested in a radio direct response agency, what I suggest is you need, they say, the indicator of performance is what has happened in the past. Doesn't guarantee it, but it more or less shows you that that agency actually has had success. When I go out and I market our services, I simply say, well, this is what we've done. This is the categories that we've done it in. If this is a match for you, great, Mr. CEO or VP of Marketing or Chief Marketing Officer. If not, then it's not a match. But it's past history that you have. Don't go for, I'm going to, I promise, I think I can, I have this great idea for you. That's a bunch of crap. Ask them what they did and how they made out with it, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's the hardest question people will ever ask an agency. Ask the hard question. What have you done in the past? In my category, that's worked.
Yeah, no, and I think that's so critical. I want to see proven success. The other thing that you've talked about, I want to see somebody who's testing too. I mean, we see so many entrepreneurs waste money. They just have enough of a budget where they do not a test, they just do a campaign, and then it works or doesn't work. Usually it doesn't work the first time. We're not brilliant. We got to get feedback from the marketplace. And they don't have somebody that's testing. The agency convinced them, okay, let's take a big shot and see if it works. And there's got to be a budget to test this and test it, to refine it. So much of business is you nail the client experience, whatever you're delivering, whether it's tickets like Priceline or the credit report, freecreditreport.com, or professional service widgets. You nail that experience, and then really use what you're talking about, Fred, to scale it up. To test it, and then when you get it, run with it.
Right. No, you're right, John. I'd rather see somebody spend a little bit of money over a longer period of time in order to get feedback, just like you said, than getting all their money and dumping it into a campaign immediately and crossing it. I give these examples of Priceline. I'm not sure, it almost does more damage than it does good, because people think they show up in front of me, and they say, make me a Priceline. I want it to happen in 14 days. I went third. Imagine this with Priceline, every day, if you opened your computer, there's 35,000 orders on your computer. And I say, no, that's an anomaly. Usually you have to find that magic message, and it takes a period of time. So my suggestion is, if you have a limited budget, spend it over a period of time. Don't dump it all in and say, oh, it didn't work. It's like straightening your teeth. You go to the orthodontist, you have to keep going back, and they little, and finally it's good. Same thing with advertising.
No, that's great. Let's go to the next segment. And this is the book of the day. You've given so much advice. Everybody should go to aesnation.com, download the transcript, because I've written a lot of notes, and I consider myself a pretty good marketer, and you know what? I got some great advice today, Fred. So I mean, I really appreciate it. But are there any books that the entrepreneurs can look to that would be helpful for them?
Okay, so I like The Secret. The Secret is basically, I'm not if you knew me really well, I don't accept things at face value. You have to kind of prove it to me, number one, and I think about it. I'll listen to everybody, but I won't necessarily believe or follow through with what they're telling me. I have to work it through myself. With The Secret, basically, it's the law of attraction. That's the secret, the law of attraction. So how do you get things coming your way? How do you become an inviting type marketer, an inviting type person, whether it be with your family or whether it be with business? Watch The Secret. It comes in video and it also comes in the book.
Yeah, let me just put it up on the screen for the video. Secrets on Amazon. I'll tell you, Fred, I think of The Secret. I mean, the law of attraction, I really believe. There's a little fine tuning I think they left out, but the combination of the book, the movie, and the marketing campaign of bringing it out was brilliant.
Yes, indeed. The other one that I would suggest is Dan Kennedy's The Ultimate Marketing Plan. Dan's he's a pretty clever guy. I've known him for a long time.
Well,
and anything he writes, I get something.
Yeah, I always buy everything Dan writes, and I would very much say Dan is kind of the ultimate direct marketing guy, and right. He's sharing a lot of the insights, and this is a great, a lot of ideas in a relatively unbelievably inexpensive a book. Let's go to the next segment. This is resources, and Fred, what on your smartphone? What's something you would recommend to your fellow entrepreneurs?
Two recommendations, John, if I may. One is there's an app on there. It costs $2 or $3. It's called Gary Catona's Voice Building
Okay,
Project.
I'm going to put it up on the screen here. I'm not aware of this one, and I do notice it's got the guys. Gary's got the same last name as you here.
Yes, he's my brother. He's the #1 voice coach in the world, and right now he's worked with Andre Bocelli. He's working with Larry Page from Google, and 100 of the greatest voices in the world. He builds power into a person's voice, great power, both in the speaking voice and the singing voice. So it's a cheap application that builds voice, and remember, people judge you how your voice sounds, so you can always improve that. The second tip, John, is that I call it save the marriage vacation. Okay, save the marriage. Leave your damn cell phone at home. Don't bring it with you. They don't dig it. That's my tip about cell phones.
No, that's probably some of the best advice on smartphones ever. Let's go to the next segment. And this is resources. And I'm going to pull up your website, bulldozerdigital.com, and I've got that up on the screen. Fred, any resources there, or how they can contact you and so on the site?
Sure. I'm here, John, for you and your entrepreneurs. So I'm here to help. So what I will do, anybody that emails me, I will send them radioactive marketing. How it's a checklist, how they can do it themselves. How they can actually do the marketing system that I use to launch both Price Line and Free Credit Report, and what I use for all my clients. Just call or email and ask for the resource called Radioactive Marketing, and we'll send it to you free of charge. No, and nobody will call back or anything. Don't worry about that.
That's appreciated.
Okay. And also, anybody that wants a 20-minute consultation, you can apply for that. I mean, the last time I said this, I got 100 of them, so it took me a while to get back to people. But this is what I'm about now. I'm about, like, if I can help anybody a little bit, fine. That's what I want to do.
You're really making a big difference, Fred. And let me do the last segment. I'm going to give you my key takeaways. I'll tell you, there's an awful lot of them. Number one, I really love that concept of know who your enemy is, and it's not who you're thinking of. You know, in any marketing campaign, get really clear on that. Second, what I also like the whole ability to really think through then, okay, if that's your enemy, how do you defeat them? And I'm going to combine it in 10 words or less. And, some brilliant things. And lastly is to go ahead and test, and then scale up once you've got that message. Let the market. This has been just phenomenal. It is so valuable. It's for every entrepreneur out there. I want you to listen to this more than once or read the transcript, however best you do it, because there's so many little bits of nuggets that, Fred, you've learned over the years, the top marketing, it's very few individuals that have accomplished anything even close to what you have, that I always like the term, that a lot of times when you start something, it's simple and it's out of ignorance. We just don't know. I mean, we waste money on marketing. Then all of a sudden we start to understand it becomes really complex. Well, what you've done is taken it to the right side of complexity and made it simple for us today. So I want to thank you again.
You're welcome, John. My pleasure.
Well, it's all about execution. So go back to aesnation.com. We'll have all the links. We'll have the contact with Fred so you can get the radioactive marketing piece as well. And this, put this in place because your current clients, they're counting on you. But, those future clients, all those people you can serve, they're counting on you too. Let's execute and make a difference. Wish you the best of success.
Exceptional, remarkable breakthroughs. aesnation.com